Hi, it's Terry from Lizard Creek Quilting, and well, we're starting into Promise Kept, and some of the chops I'd really like to explain in person how this crazy brain works and how I came up with some of them. So we're going to start with chop, or the chop that's called thatched and wallpaper. So first we're going to start with thatched, which is these top four here, and I'll give you the memory or the feeling that I wanted to convey with these, and then I'll show you the process of what I started with and how I ended up with what you see here. So for our 25th anniversary trip, when we went to Hawaii the first time, we landed in Honolulu, and we went to Waikiki, and we stayed in some fancy high-rise apartment. Well, it was fancy to us because we hadn't been many places. High-rise hotel, and the next morning we went, the front desk said, go to Duke's. It's a great place. They have a great breakfast buffet. So we wandered our way down the street and we found Duke's. Little did these little Iowa farmers know that Duke's was, it was like a buffet breakfast, but it was on the ocean. And when I say on the ocean, I mean, here's our table and there's the ocean. It was right there. No windows, all open air, and it just blew our mind that people did that. Number one, in Iowa it snows, and so you have to have windows, but the feeling or the memories from that place was the wind blowing through, the open windows, the thatched roofs on all of the little umbrellas that were over the tables. And that thatch would just whisper in the ocean breeze and just make that cool rustling sound. And so I really wanted to give the feeling of, and the tables were all like bamboo wicker looking. They had, a real distinct look. And so I was looking to try find that memory and that feeling in these chops. And so what I started with was just kind of like to me it was just like a little patchwork lines, trying to convey. Sometimes you can have those floor rugs that are almost like wicker like too. I was trying to kind of make wicker, and that was my first one, and well, that was a no-go. I just didn't like it when it repeated. So then I thought, what if I take just this little almost like a little bone shape is kind of what I was thinking. And so then I stacked them up so that they would be, when you think of thatching, how it's woven together like this, that was the look I was trying to get. And so when I sent that to Jerry, my guy at the fabric company, he said, oh, Terry, we can't do, that's too hard for them to line up. So I like your concept, but let's work on that some more. Well, I had given him a few tries. We did some thick ones. I did some thin ones, and every time he says, nope, try again, Terry. Okay, Terry, try it again. And then he says, why don't you just try scatter them? Scatter. How am I going to scatter thatched? It's supposed to be this organized line thing. But here's what we came up with. I took a little section. I took like about this big of section from this one line of thatching, and then just kind of tossed it all around the area. I have to design in this 6x9 area is what I have to design in. So we tossed them around. We added in a couple little polka dots for a little bit of visual interest, and that's how I came up with thatched. And so I'll show you in the fabrics which ones we chose to showcase this. This one just gives you that feeling of sitting on the beach with the water flowing all across the ocean and our little grass huts just blowing in the wind. This one is actually Lauren's favorite because he loves this blue and this soft watercolored, and yeah, he's shaking his head because it is his favorite. This one probably shows the chop really nice. It's kind of a yellowy green, and then the chop part is a turquoise before the turquoise water, and this looks really pretty in the quilts that just want to show the color. And that's what I was also designing with this one, is I didn't want it to be such a bold one. I just wanted it to be a little more than a blender, but in the blender family, because you always need some quiet designs in a collection, or else it's just all loud and you can't concentrate on anything. So you need something that's a little bit quieter. So this one is a great, this bolt in particular is a great quiet one. And then this one comes to, it is kind of the deep yellow or the bright yellow sunshine. And the chop in this one is, it's kind of a cross between pink and coral. So it's kind of corally, kind of pinky, depending on which way you look at it. And this one, while it's the same chop, look at it, it's much bolder. I'm going to pull this one back. And when you look at these two, you know, side by side, the green one just has a much more softer, a little less in your face, whereas this yellow, besides it being the yellow color, but by having that contrasting, that little bit brighter chop color, it's a little bit bolder of a print, even though it's the same chop. And then finally I went with just kind of a really soft orange. It could be the peachy, we're going to call it peachy coral. And the chop is just a lighter one. It's not white and it's not cream. It's just a lighter value of the main color. And so this one is like to represent the sunshine, or the morning dawn, or the evening sunset, or flowers. Those are all great places where you could use this really soft, blendy type design. And so when I was, you know, I really liked how this thatched turned out. I just liked that it tells the story without being in your face telling your story. And once you see what it is, you just can't unsee it. So, you know, I wanted to tell you how this came about. And so I really wanted to keep that little bit of thatched feeling going. So I went with the next chop, which I called wallpaper, because it feels like the inside of that Duke's restaurant felt in my memory. There was all old vintage pictures of surfboard guys and guys in Hawaiian shirts with palm trees. And so this print is where that memory comes in my mind. So I took small elements from several other chops and put them together into this one. So I took the element of the leaf from the leaves print, so you can see this, the big leaf here. And in my scummling for things, I found my drawings for the leaf. So I thought you might like to be interested in that. Well, so this is on a small piece of paper, you can see. Sometimes I'll go to like some farm meetings with my husband, and most of the stuff in the meeting, I don't always care what they're talking about. I just go along for something to do, and I always take a little scratch pad of paper along. So I was doodling my leaves. So these are a couple of the doodles where this leaf chop came from. So from the doodles, then I take it to, I'll use a Sharpie, draw a couple more different thoughts on how I'm going to do it, because when you're designing batiks, you have to think about the positive and the negative in the chop. So wherever it is black on this photo, that's where the like the wax part is. So you want to be consciously thinking about what is black and what is white, because that is where the reverse comes from in the fabric. So that's the leaf from the leaf. And then I also took out the tiny flower from the plumeria print. I pulled apart the thatched, and I turned them on their side and crossed them over to make just a little frame. Hence the framed vintage photos that were all over in the restaurant. So I made a frame with each individual piece from the thatched, put the flower inside there because there was all kinds of vintage floral pictures. And again, I set it in this kind of cool repeating pattern, that thinking that it's going to look like cool wallpaper. Well, I send that to Jerry, and Jerry goes, "Oh, Terry, we can't put repeating patterns like that. Let's go a little more organic and be a little bit tossed." So I tossed them. And we came up with this chop that we are calling wallpaper because it is my memory of wallpaper turned into fabric. So you'll see the plumeria flower inside the little thatched reeds, and then the leaf scattered throughout it. So this one is in a really pretty turquoise, and the chop part is in kind of a light blue turquoise. And again, just a deep, vibrant one to give the feeling of the ocean waters that were so beautiful there. In green, and in this one, the chop is a real light yellow with a little bit of green thrown in. So there's yellow, there's light green, kind of like a spring green or a lime green almost. And you can see it compared to this deep leafy green, or the leaves green, that there is enough contrast there. So when you're making a block, you can put the two together and they'll still talk separately from each other. And that's always the hard and fun part for me when choosing from the strike-offs, because I really consciously make an effort to try give you a dark, a light, and a medium. Being that I started as a pattern designer before a fabric designer, I know that working with quilt blocks, you need a dark, a medium, and a light to make your block really shine and to have, just to make it sparkle. So you can see that there is, enough contrast there that you can get that sparkle. So that's the green one. And then we have yellow. And again, yellow is a bolder, in-your-face color, but I chose the chop to be the darker one in this, and then the background is a little bit lighter. And being that it's tone on tone, this one, even though it's a bold yellow, could read more as a blender than a bold in your face. I'm just going to show the difference between this yellow with the thatched and the wallpaper, and you can see that the thatched one is a lot more bold, and it screams yellow at you more than the one that has, the yellow chop and the yellow background. And all of those things make such a difference. And I like to give you all of the different choices, because each fabric is going to have its own personality and its own use in your quilts. And then we end up with this pretty soft orange. And again, orange is a color that maybe a lot of people aren't in love with, and I admit I don't have a lot of orange in my stash. But as you can see, I did use a lot of this one because it starts out, as a big bolt. This one made beautiful backings on my quilts. So I did use this one on backings quite a bit. It is the wallpaper chop, but the chop part is white. And then the background is just a really soft coral. Well, no, not coral, it's more orange. And yeah, it works good in a quilt, but it also did an amazing job for the backings. And I think that's what I have for wallpaper and thatched. And thanks for watching. Find me on Facebook and YouTube, and tell your friends, go to your shops, tell them you want Promise Kept. We'll see you later.